We are T-minus 5 days away from moving out of this apartment and only 1 month away from formally moving out of Vancouver. For context, I moved here in 2017 for university. You know, when I moved here initially, I didn't really know what I was doing. I spent my whole life knowing I wanted to go into healthcare, thinking I wanted to be a doctor. Mental health was not strong enough to manage school for another like 10 years. I ended up putting all of my focus onto becoming a nurse. Some of my favorite memories from undergrad are from first year when my friends, who at the time were just gals that I really didn't know very well at all, they would just come into my dorm room. I was almost always pretending to study when in reality just like sitting on my computer watching TV. And they would come in and plop on my bed, eat some of the snacks that I had, and talk about life, whether that was what we really wanted to do with our futures, what were the prospects of our relationships at the time. And there was a lot of security in feeling like no one knew what the hell they were doing. It was really nice to feel like everyone was just a little bit lost together. We're all just kind of making memories and floundering, and everyone was just like insecure in their own ways. And I really fell in love with the peace that Vancouver had. Growing up in a middle-class area of California where every parent would describe their income as comfortable. Every student in high school wants to go to UCLA or Berkeley or an Ivy League. It didn't seem to matter at all that I wasn't admitted to USC because people didn't even know what USC was. And that bubble that was popped in terms of the community that I was a part of in high school, realizing how much bigger the world is and being in this space where people really value taking a step back. They value mental health days. They prioritize going on hikes, being out in nature, doing things for themselves and not just for the gram. It was all just so refreshing at 18 years old, and finally removing myself from that LA culture that was just so normalized growing up. I really don't think I would have found that self-peace without moving here. But figured out, and to have the time and space to figure out what you really want and to discover what it really means to you to be happy. Leaving the city 7 years later, I really do feel like I've figured out what I really value. Moving from the first couple years of university into the second couple years of university, I really feel like it was almost, I got 2 different university experiences, which was, I find both of them extremely invaluable because the first couple years were a lot more traditionally where I had the dorm room experience and I had friends that were going out and partying and cramming for finals and that sort of thing. And then when I moved into nursing school, it was like this second coming because I was finding this new community of like-minded peers that knew that they wanted to go into nursing, and they knew that for a lot of people it was their second career, it was their second profession, and a lot of them knew that they had this calling to help other people. And it was really empowering community that really understood me and understood what I wanted. Being into nursing just kind of felt like a default, and being surrounded by people in this community that were also compassionate and also driven and really understood exactly why they were going into nursing, it was really empowering. COVID ended up impacting the experience for a lot of people, and we all had to kind of go remote for that last year, but In reality, it was almost a blessing in disguise. Like, COVID was a really great time for me to learn a lot about myself as well. I think prior to COVID, I was so scared of being alone. In the dorms in first year, the gals that I was living next to, we were so close. And then second year, when I was starting to have a little bit of issues in terms of my social life, it was so isolating and I felt so alone, and it was so scary to be alone, and I was having so many issues with my then relationship in second year, and it just felt impossible to be with my own company. During COVID, it really forced me to take a step back and be like, why are you so afraid of being by yourself? Why are you scrambling for anyone's company other than your own? I really got in tune with my creative side, which was absolutely amazing. I don't feel like when I started doing TikToks and fiddling around with things online, I never thought I would have been able to find some of my closest friends through this community. The person I was online was more myself than the person I was in person, because I was too afraid to be known and to be myself. The right company will be attracted to you, because if they don't like who you really are, then obviously they're not the right people for you to be hanging out with. It ended up slowly shifting to, why not do that? Why not do this? That mindset really ended up informing me for the last couple of years, my bedside nursing job to a leadership position. And I really doubted myself at first on whether or not I was ready, but after a while I felt emboldened enough to say, why aren't you ready? Why doubt your capabilities? Bug in my head to potentially apply for grad school, and then part of me is like, oh, maybe not, maybe it's not time. But then again, I started asking, like, why not? This mindset of why not has really changed my life. I don't think I would be moving to San Francisco without this change in mindset. I think some of the things I'm going to miss the most about living in Vancouver is the community that I've built so far. I have friendships here that are so profound and so authentic that I truly did not think that I'd be able to have these types of connections outside of my family. I go so far with keeping an open heart, and honestly, people just like aren't as malicious as I thought they were. I think like for such a long time I was so distrusting and suspicious of people's intentions, and maybe a lot of that comes from growing up in SoCal, where everyone's competing for that one spot in university and your closest friends are also your biggest competition, and it just doesn't breed a very healthy environment to create authentic relationships. But I feel like the friends that I've had here are just so genuine, and they really truly want what's best for me, and they are my biggest cheerleaders. I wouldn't love Vancouver so much if it weren't for them. Their love and joy is just so, it's so tangible, it's just so contagious that it makes you want to live life as vibrantly as they do. And so many of the experiences I might not have pursued without their encouragement or without them inviting me as their plus one. And truly, I can't be more grateful for everything that they've done. Opening me up to new experiences, being supportive, and just overall being some of the most genuine, authentic people. What's about Vancouver is the food. I think being such a foodie growing up, and again, living in an area that was so predominantly white, I have completely taken advantage of how easily accessible Chinese food is here in Vancouver. And just the variety of food, the seafood and the sushi are just so high quality and so much cheaper than anywhere else I could think of in the Western countries. I think the area that I live in is so safe. It's been really, really nice. And I'm also gonna miss this apartment. This apartment has so many memories, and I will really say it was my first home. I've lived here for almost 3.5 years, and this has really been my safe space and sanctuary. I think some of the most pivotal moments in my life have happened in this apartment. The fact that it is my first apartment is really special and really important to me. You know, I was living in the dorm rooms for all of university, and that first payment of the apartment was something that was like such a big deal because I had never spent that kind of money before, and it was like I was paying for it with my first paycheck, and I feel like it was such a real moment in terms of moving into adulthood. All these things that just like you don't think about them when you're living at home, but they become part of you, and they become part of this journey into adulthood and learning how to be your own person. And I think learning how to be your own person isn't just about who you grow into in terms of your personality and characteristics, but it's also a lot of it is like what you want your life to look like in terms of like your morning routine, your nightly routine, like how you want to spend your money and who you want to spend that money with. And our relationship ended up ending and things didn't end up working out. It was like I had this opportunity to potentially leave the apartment and like maybe start from scratch in terms of like no partner, no one else you're tied to. You can just like start fresh. Ended up doing was I just ended up completely redecorating the space, and I made it my own little gremlin cottage cozy apartment. Is probably where I ended up falling in love with him. Just being like such a vibrant personality, and I just feel like this apartment has the absolute highs of my life, and I'm gonna miss it. I'm gonna miss it a lot. I know that I'm not really the best student in terms of keeping my anxiety under wraps, and all there are worse things in the world than getting a B in a class, and it's like that's something I really want to keep in mind. I really want to stay grounded and centered while going to grad school. One of the toughest parts about being in Vancouver has been my job. I think everyone has heard the stories of how nurses can get abused and like having feces flung at them, or really unsafe staffing, or just like difficult people to work with. I think all of that has occurred in the job, to be frank, but nothing has prepared me for some of the experiences that I've had in the hospital. I think some of the trauma I carry from this job is like, I will never ever forget, and I think it's really changed my way of thinking. I feel like before working as a nurse, I was so nitpicky. Was worded was like that really put me off, but now it's like I just want peace, you know? Like it's just, I feel like it's really changed my perspective on what matters to me and what doesn't matter to me. I'd be more grateful for that. And I hope that I can continue to heal and to find some comfort and solace in some of the things that I have experienced at the hospital. I see the people around me making these big life moves and these big steps into their future, and it's just so unbearably exciting to potentially be a part of their stories and to be making that same kind of progress in my own life and my own story is really, really exciting. In terms of a time capsule, I would really, in the future, I'm really hoping to manage or start my own Asian American focused assisted living facility. That's a really big dream of mine, and I think that predominantly Chinese, but I know in a lot of Asian cultures, it's the stigma around putting your family member and your elders into a care facility it's very stigmatized. Like, you don't do that. And I'd really like to change that. We can support them with professional and also culturally relevant resources so that we can remove some of that pressure off of families and take some of that load off of them, you know? Like, I just want our communities to be able to come together a little bit more so that we can all bear a little bit of this weight rather than everyone being so isolated and being so hyper independent. It's okay to lean on each other's strengths, and overall I'm just really excited to see what the future has in store. But I guess until then, bye for now to Vancouver.